Welcome to Flip Chart Friday. We've finished the month. We're at the first day of November, and it's time for you to start learning how to sell value and the importance of positioning yourself that way on the front end. We're going to take a very close look at that this week. All righty. So on Tuesday, I talked about presenting and closing. But before I got to presenting and closing, I talked about some other things that you need to know before you're really, truly ready to close. And the reason why I did that is because last week I was in New York and I met a gentleman who is the number one in his field. He is the best of the best worldwide. And the beautiful thing about him is he sells for a company that is the highest cost because they do a better job than anyone else. They're very good at what they do. Now, if we talk to some of their competitors, obviously they're not going to believe that. But all you have to do is look at their financial history, their response history, and the things that they've accomplished throughout the years, and you'll realize they do a great job at what they do. But the thing I enjoyed about talking to this gentleman, I didn't have a whole lot of time with him, but I was familiar with him. I was very familiar with his track record. And I told him, I said, the thing I love that I hear about you is you know how to sell value. And one of the things that he brought up, he said, Byron, I tell them on the front end, I won't be the cheapest. My goal's not to be the cheapest. My goal is to provide you with the product that will help you to be the most successful you can be with not only your company, but with your clients. And that's what they accomplish. But that brings us to a topic that came out of Tuesday. So we were talking about how managers, or your manager is going to be putting pressure and applying pressure to the sales team at the end of the month to start selling a product, close it, bring it to an end so that that commission isn't extended into the next month. I mean, guys, like it or not, we all get paid, and that's how we want to get paid, and you want to get the money as soon as possible. But if you look at your standard sales script, and I know everybody, and I always talk about script, and I'm not talking about a script, I'm talking about a structured script, meaning when I work with a client, I design a structure. And if you follow that structure, it'll give you guidance on how to interact with your customer to ultimately change that conversation so that it's more value driven. So let me give you what I'm talking about before I go to my flip chart here. I did a lot of work in my early years of training with Dish Network, DirecTV, Comcast, Time Warner, Bell South, and some of those companies, they're selling the same product. If you're looking at a TV and it's 1080p or it's 4K, ladies and gentlemen, there's not a lot of difference. The packages are similar. The picture quality is now similar. Everybody's, they're keeping up, and parity has happened in that industry. So you want to change that conversation to the experience with your family, the experience of setting everything up. That's how I would structure and have a strategy for someone that's selling cable and those sorts of things, and internet. The company that I want to talk about now sells feedback. And here's what you've got to be conscientious of when you're working with a client, okay? Or in my case, I'm working with a client. So my customer sells feedback. Now, before I go into this, I want you to realize you have, in that feedback, you've got Yelp. You've got, Square or something. I don't know the exact name of the company, Square, whatever. Then you've got the receipts. So you've got different things that you're competing against. And theirs is actually a fixture that's sitting there. Someone hits it, and then they can provide feedback. Now, they have competitors, not just from that, but also in there. And so let's make it a stand. All right. There's 3 major competitors. And there's differences. I'm not going to go into that. That's not the important thing. But when you're looking at it, as if I was selling feedback, and this is where I spent, this is the area that I'm in, where I have a stand or either something that attaches to the wall, I want to know what my competition's doing. In other words, who are you using for feedback now? Is that an important question? The answer is absolutely. And if they're using Yelp, guess what I'm going to do while I'm talking to that customer? I'm going to go on the internet. I'm going to look them up in Yelp. And if they have very few feedbacks, guess what? That's not an effective tool. if they have the Square D, I think whatever it is, it's a POS system. If they're not getting a lot of feedback, I want to know. So here's two things that you've got to take into question. How many people come in? How many people come in? What's your number? Okay? If I'm getting 100, 200 people through my store a day, or I'm getting 100 or 200 people through my gas station a day, or I'm getting it through my theater, or wherever it is, my restaurant, and I'm only getting 10 feedbacks here, maybe 20 here, receipt 100 a month. I mean, think of that. If you've got that many people coming in on a daily basis and you're getting 100 a month, that's a very weak number. But here's what happened with this particular gentleman. He had a client that was getting 2,000 a month in a test, and he's really competing against this right here. Don't know the numbers here on the negative, but I do know the numbers here, and I don't want to get in great specifics because it's proprietary information. But what I'm wanting you to realize is, if I'm looking at it, I've got to look at what is my competition. So right now, am I focused on me or am I focused on the client? Technically, I'm focused on me. I want to know, hey, what are you currently using for feedback? I'm going to find out what it is. I'm going to ask the questions to see how effective it is. Am I going to say a word? No. I've collected this on the front end. They have no idea where I'm headed with it. They're going to brag about what they're doing, because if they didn't think it was the right thing to do, guess what they wouldn't do? They wouldn't be doing it. So what you're going to actually get them to do is to change. And what is every client resistant to? Change. Do they think they have a problem? No, they're pretty happy with it. In this particular case, they've been using they're using receipts. They've been using it for years, and they feel like they get great feedback. But if you're in a convenience store, grocery store, or some type of retail, and you're getting 200 to 300 people through your store a day, and in that month you're only getting 100 feedbacks, something's wrong. In other words, you don't have a clue of what's really going on in your organization. So that brings us to the next point, how the value comes in. So I've gathered this information. And now what I want to find out is, who is their competition? And I'm going to tell you, their competition, Walmart, Publix, Kroger, and several other independent grocery stores. So what's happening here is, let's be candid. If I'm an independent grocer or independent convenience store, I'm going to be higher than Walmart. I may not be higher than Publix, but the experience at Publix is a little bit better than most stores. They do a very good job. The next one's Kroger. Kroger has spent a fortune getting better at what they do. So when you're dealing with this, now I want to know what their competition is. And here's the key. If I'm only getting feedback from 100 people, I really don't have a good idea. I mean, think about it. If I only get 1 or 2 negatives, then I'm thinking it's just 1 or 2 people if I'm using a receipt. But I have thousands of people going through my store in a day. Or not just in a day, but maybe, thousands in a month. And I'm only getting 100 feedbacks. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not going to say a thing to the customer yet. All I'm wanting to do is, who's the competition? What am I competing against? So notice, so far, if you haven't, if you're not getting the drift, I'm asking questions. I'm not telling them a thing about my product. I'm not discussing anything about my product. I don't want to talk about it, because who needs to be the focus? The customer. If I overeducate them, they're going to tell me why what they're doing is right. It's human nature. And that's where so many people mess up, is you don't realize human nature, and admitting that you're wrong is a very, very, very strong deterrent of telling you the truth from a customer to a salesperson. So now, what we've looked at so far, I know my competitor, so I know who I'm competing against. Now I'm looking at them and trying to figure out who he's competing against. And in some alliances, now this is a B2C environment. If it was a B2B, I'm going to look out at their competition, in other words, who their client's competition is. I'm not going to do it here because I've got enough information to start, factoring everything in. So that brings us, how does your client define value? And it's very easy. Let me get another color here. Customers and customer return. It's very simple. If I go to Publix and I have a bad experience, when I come out of my neighborhood, I go one way, it's 1 mile, I'm at a Kroger. I can go past the Publix and go to Walmart 2 miles. So here it is. In a very short period of time, I get to take my money and my wallet somewhere else. So what I want them to focus on is the customer and the return. If they're having problems, you need to know. You need to know how to fix it. So if I'm sitting here, let me go back to this sheet. If I come back to this sheet and I'm only getting $100 a month versus $2,000 a month, which one do you think is going to be more accurate? Which one's going to really give me an idea of what's going on in my store? What's going to, and the key is they let you put in notes. So what you're doing here at this moment is, so far, are we talking about my product yet? No. All we're doing is letting him talk. But we want to ask somebody, and I'm going to tell you myself, it's myself and my wife. We probably spend $800-900 a month on food, maybe on groceries and stuff. So I'm a customer that's worth $12,000 in revenue. If I decide not to come back, if I don't return, you'll never get me back. If I end up going to Kroger versus a Publix, the odds of me going back to Publix are slim to none, unless it's just an emergency and I'm passing by it. So here's what I'm wanting you to do to learn how to provide value. So this particular gentleman, he got pushback. His client flat out told him, I think I'm going to stay where I am. In other words, back to where we are, he's going to stay with $100 a month versus $2,000 a month. And here's why. Do you think he got more negative feedback in this $2,000? The answer is probably yes. I didn't get the numbers and I'm not going to give them if I did have them. But if I'm the store manager, I don't want someone knowing that I'm doing something wrong. It makes me look bad. So there's human nature of pushing back. So you've got to manage to this in your sales process. You've got to pay attention of what your product, the disruption it can cause. The first point you're going to get, hey, I don't want to change. The second point is as a store manager, I don't want you to know that I'm not doing it at the level that I want to do it. And if y'all have watched my videos before when I've talked about salespeople that are nervous about sending me a recording, are nervous about role playing with me, my answer to you is, you know that you're not doing it right, and you know you could do it better, or you would role play. You would come with pride and try to take me down. That's what I want you to do. But when I'm working with a client and I'm working in that opportunity, you've got to explain to this and be prepared for these things to come. Now, do I teach that in my sales training? You bet I do. But what you've got to be prepared for is defining the value. Because ultimately, am I going to charge them more money for a product that provides this much more feedback? Yeah, I am. Am I going to apologize for it? No, I'm not. Because I can explain to you one thing. Yes, you're going to pay more for my product. But what it's going to help you do, Mr. Customer, is identify the problem customer well before they go to Walmart, Publix, or Kroger. These companies are 10 times bigger than you. They're going to outcompete you on price. They're going to outcompete you on customer experience unless you make that customer's experience an awesome thing. So my whole point to you is this, and I know it's a lot of you, every time I do these things, I get emails and people say, Byron, I watched your video. It doesn't apply to my industry. Everything applies to an industry. If you sell anything, if your customer goes somewhere else, guess what? It's a problem. And let me give you one pointer. AT&T lost 1.2 million customers from DirecTV this past month or past quarter. That's a ton of money when you look at it. The average bill is $86 out of that organization. So you're looking at over $86 million a month gone. Did they go to Comcast? I don't know. Did they go to YouTube and do YouTube TV for $49? I don't know. But I do know one thing, their revenue is gone. And trying to get it back, selling on price is not going to get it. You're going to have to sell the value like DirecTV used to do. And so all I'm wanting you to realize is this. You've got to position yourself to be able to discuss the value that you bring. You've got to be able to, you're going to rough a customer up a little bit. They are going to resist change. You've got to try harder. You've got to explain to them why. And that's why it's so important that you truly understand what goes on in your customer's organization, and you truly understand where the revenue comes from, and you truly understand what kind of margins they're facing. Because I want to tell you something, there's not a lot of margins in grocery stores. You've got to have the repeat business or you'll go out of business. And I'm telling you, there's a ton of people that Walmart put out of business, Publix has put out of business, and so has Kroger. So if you're an independent grocer or you're a convenience store, you know you've got to do it better. And that's really what I wanted to talk about. I don't want to spend a whole lot more time. I've spent a lot of time on this particular video. You're coming into November. It's the end of the year. Start positioning yourself to be selling value. Now you'll look up in the top left-hand corner and you'll see invest in yourself. I want to bring up something here. It's a little sales pitch. Don't mind doing it. I'm good at what I do. But I'm going to be doing a Beyster boot camp where we're going to dig into these things, where if you're smart and you invest in yourself and you get the opportunity to put yourself out there in the public forum and do the role plays and think and get outside the box in a protected environment, that investment in that boot camp will pay for itself in no time. My goal is not to humiliate anybody. My goal is to help you in a protected environment get better at what you do so that you're not apologizing for charging more for what you do. You are proud of what you charge. Quit discounting so quickly, because all that's sending a message to the customer is, hey, I wasn't worth it to begin with. And that's what I want you to realize. Be careful on the discounting. Make it look hard. Don't just drop to get the business, because guess what they're going to expect next time? Another deep discount. Hey, it's been a pleasure doing this video. I hope it's helped you. If it has, please share it with others. If it hasn't, please give me that comment. I'm totally okay. I don't mind feedback at all. Would love for someone, if you want to, hey, I'll bring you on and we'll do some live role play. We'll roll with anything. If you're willing to come on one of these shows and do a live role play, take it from the top, man, I'm totally game. I won't charge you for that. That's something I generally charge thousands of dollars for a client to do. So if you ever want an opportunity to see if you're good at what you do, bring it on. Let's have some fun. Hey, listen, also YouTube right down there. If you hit the little subscribe button, that way you'll get a notification every time I do a video. If you're on Facebook, please join my Facebook group. It's been a pleasure. Have a great week. Have a great month. Enjoy your weekend. Get ready for Monday, and let's kick some butt. See you next time. Too long?